I had one of the strongest, fittest professional athletes come in and said, Justin, I have pain in my wrist. And I said, really, where? And he pointed right to where his smartwatch was. I said, well, hey, why don't you take that radiation off your wrist? And so he looked at me like, radiation? And I said, yeah, take it off. And he takes the watch off and his pain goes away. And that was pretty much the aha moment for me, where I knew that new technology with wearable stuff and all the wireless signals were only getting stronger and closer to us in proximity.
Welcome to the Inspired Living with Autoimmunity podcast, the podcast for high achievers who want to stay sharp, focused, and full of energy despite their diagnosis. With your host, National Board Certified Functional Medicine Health Coach, Julie Michelson, where Julie helps you take your power back from autoimmunity. And now here's your host, Julie Michelson.
Welcome back to the Inspired Living with Autoimmunity podcast. I'm your host, Julie Michelson. Today, we're joined by Dr. Chris Sargent. Chris wrote and published her first book, Simply Functional Medicine, in 2017, and her second, Cultivating a Mind, Soul, and Body for God, is almost complete. She offers keynotes and workshops based on her work in cultivating, and she's the host of Spark Faith. Over the years, Dr. Sargent has accumulated hundreds of hours of continuing education in functional nutrition, leadership, and personal development, as well as certification in first-line therapy, a postdoctoral master's degree in advanced clinical practice and internal medicine, and she has 32 years in private practice. Dr. Sargent also considers herself a clinical science geek and sleuth. In today's conversation, we're talking about true lifestyle medicine and faith as a powerful component of wellness. We discuss the power of leaving your comfort zone and embracing change and growth at any age. Justin, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Julie. Thank you for having me on.
It's truly my pleasure. I have been so excited for this interview. I love differing opinions as well, but we're so aligned that I'm like, I want to talk about all the things. So I will try to behave myself while we let the audience get to know you a little bit. Tell us about your story, because right before I hit record, I was talking about what I think of as the wellness continuum. And so I love that your journey starts with high performing athletes, but everything you do, also for those with autoimmunity or those who just want to be well, it all applies. So share your journey with us.
Yes, it sure does. Thank you. I started about 30 years ago working with the amateur and professional athletes, started athleticism.com, and I'm a performance coach. I do nerve work and fascia work and coordination work for sports performance. And it was about the time, about over a decade or dozen years ago, I should say, I had one of the strongest, fittest professional athletes come in and said, Justin, I have pain in my wrist. And I said, really, where? And he pointed right to where his smartwatch was. And I said, well, hey, why don't you take that radiation off your wrist? And so he looked at me like, radiation? And I said, yeah, take it off. And he takes the watch off and his pain goes away. And that was pretty much the aha moment for me, where I knew that this new technology with wearable stuff and all the wireless signals were only getting stronger and closer to us in proximity. And I knew we had to look to something. And I started emfrocks.com. And now we're one of the industry leaders in natural EMF protection products with our grounding bags sold through doctor clinics all around the country.
And so thank you, first of all, for taking it to the next step, because clearly the challenges aren't going away. Like you said, more wearables, things close, we're just bombarded more and more and more. People are asking me all the time, why are autoimmunity numbers on the rise like crazy, right? Why are our children sick? Why are people fat? Why, like all the things? Yes, I just said that on air. And I'm always talking about toxins and all of these. It's really just distance from nature, right? Because we can't. You can pick food, air, water, toxins, all the things, but it's distance from nature. And I feel like, and I'm the person that everybody in my circles, it's like, the eyes roll when it comes to EMFs and all of that stuff that we're bombarded with. And here we are, we're talking on a computer, right? Like I don't live in a cave. I can't do what I want to do if I live in a cave. So I love that you were like, oh, we need something to help with that resilience, right? Help get us back in touch with our natural state amidst the what I call chaos around us, these frequencies that are bombarding us all day. So thank you. Heartfelt thank you for that. And share with listeners a little bit of the why, right? Because I think a lot of people say, and we're going to talk about a lot of kind of different inputs. And I think the story people tell themselves is, well, it must be safe if they're putting 5G in my neighborhood, if they're putting solar panels on my house, if we're at wearables. I mean, wearables have exploded. So what is the difference? We're electrical. Why is this a problem?
Yeah, definitely. Well, the challenge is that we're electromagnetic beings. All living organisms are. And so is our universe. It's an electric universe. We live as electric blanket of an atmosphere we're one with. And we're one with it through these waves. We call them scalar waves. And these are unpolarized waves. They distribute equally in every direction. But all the man-made stuff is a one-directional waveform. So the fundamental framework of how we're made, how the universe is made, and how we're one is so different from the non-native waveforms. And that's where it gets really challenging for our bodies to really adapt to this stuff. And so I can expand from there.
Awesome. Perfect. Because I talk about inflammation a lot, which to me, that's the driver of all of the chronic illnesses and aging, what we think of as aging. And so I dumb it down and just try to get people to understand this. This is driving inflammation, right? But tell us a little more about, how is this impacting health? And I love how you explain it. And I've heard you explain it before. And so thank you for walking us through it again. It makes perfect sense, right? We're taking something that, yes, exists in nature, but we're changing it. And then again, we're so surrounded by it. And so how really is it I love the story about the Fitbit because the pain part is perfect. I've heard of people talk about testing with weaknesses, right? You put it on, You're weak, take it off, you're strong. Tell us a little more about how long-term this is, what kinds of health impacts.
Oh, well, you're seeing a lot of challenges with this stuff because it's so different. And I feel that we're only seeing the beginning of it. And in the last 140 years, since we introduced electricity into our homes, the flu's here to stay. And then every major form of disease has increased, from cardiovascular health, diabetes, Alzheimer's, cancer, suicide, and infertility. So all the bigs have gone up on that bar graph. And the one consistent variable is EMFs. And the challenge is we're not even 5G. They have the opportunity to turn it up 3 times the amount that it's on right at the highest level of 5G. They can turn it up to 300 times more than that. So you guys, we're just beginning on this mission. So it's really critical for me to get the messaging out and explain that we're one with nature, and nature has that healing potential. And the best way to explain that unpolarized wave is our bioresonance. Our biofield goes out in about 6 to 8 feet, right, Julie?
It does indeed.
Yeah, and it's not a straight line out of Justin's right ear. And then If we're earthing in the ground, you're not getting grounded in one spot and then you step over a foot another direction and you're not getting grounded. It's a
Right.
resonance off the entire earth. They call it the Schumann resonance. And same as the sun. The sun's not a laser dot.
Right.
It's distributes equally.
Thank goodness.
Yeah, thank goodness it refracts. But that's how we're really connected with nature. But these cell towers, they have panels that face every direction because they're one directional waveforms and they can only bend them about 30 degrees. So they have to have just a certain segment that they can capture. So they have panels facing every direction. And that's essentially how electricity works. They're one directional waveform. So when we understand how we're made and the framework and how different this stuff is, then we could start to move beyond these health challenges because we're going to develop usage and proximity protocols,
which I love and want to kind of get into a little bit. But first, I have a question that I'm guessing most listeners, because we already touched on wearables, and you gave us one example of a wearable. Is there such a thing as a safe wearable? What about like if you can put it on airplane mode? What are your thoughts on that?
Right. Airplane mode would be a safer option. Again, I'm just not a fan of all watches. They have batteries in them. The batteries are messing with us too. Even low level electricity is disruptive to our energy field. And because there's a vibration that happens. So this Dr. Martin Pall discovered it. This vibration affects our voltage gated calcium channels. Those are 4 big words that say that's your gateway for your mitochondria to derive energy. So the cells of your body, that's that gateway for it to get energy. And if it's disrupted right out of the gates, even with low level electricity, these faster speeds of electricity, and they measure them in the speed of a wavelength. So electricity is a slower speed of a wavelength, and then the wireless signals are in the millions to billions of waves per second. So those are faster speeds of a wavelength. Those are just equally as disruptive. They'll just probably be a little faster breakdown process with them. So we're got to really understand that connection with it. So wearables, I don't feel any of them are optimal for us. And I think there's a time and a place for these technologies. So I work with athletes, and you don't test an athlete every day. Let's just make that clear.
This is so key because I got to functional medicine through biohacking. So I love data and tracking. And I'm really excited for you to share with audiences the proper way to use these tools.
Yeah, definitely. Well, we establish baselines and then a midpoint and then an endpoint. So maybe there's 3 tests that you're going to do if you're going to test your performance output, or how much faster you've gotten or how much stronger you've gotten over a several month period of time. So that's how you use technology. You don't use it every day. So we have to let everyone know that this meta universe that technology industries are selling us on as health and wellness and optimization are the antithesis of it. They're actually slowing you down, and we want you to reconnect with God and know how your body feels and get grounded by nature. But you have to intuitively know these things. And if you don't know how many steps is 1,000 steps, well, wear it one day and test your 1,000 steps, then you know. And we got to get everybody away from having technology tell them how they feel, when they slept, when it's time to eat, and how good their workout was. No, you have to know that
I love that. I love that you talk about that, because even in the general sense, not even referring to wearables, one of the first steps in any healing process is reconnecting, being connected with your body, which often requires reconnecting, especially if we're talking about people with chronic illness, chronic pain, right? It's kind of, we tend to disconnect from those signals our body, or, it's the pain is communication. That's exactly what it is. And so I love that you're sharing that with audiences of like, we know it. I mean, when you wake up in the morning, you know how you feel. Like, just take a beat, check in, like, and how you feel doesn't mean how you're stuck that way if it's not great, So, and I love that you also, one of the reasons I was so excited to talk to you, not only about the EMF rocks, which I really want to get into, but you're not telling people, oh, just use these. You don't need to go stand on the earth, right? Like I've listened to a bunch of interviews you've done, and I haven't heard you ever, this isn't a this instead of that. This is like to help us buffer those negative effects of living in today's electrified world.
Right. Yeah, that's a big point, because a lot of products people are putting out there are blocking. They're like, how do I block this stuff and keep it out of? We're just in a place where we're not going to be able to block this stuff and live in a normal world. Like, you can't live in a Faraday cage, an ironclad, massive cage. We just can't. And we wouldn't want to anyways, because we want the frequencies of nature, because that's what helps heal us. So the answer is how do we develop usage and proximity protocols? And when we use them, how do we create that coherence between those non-native waveforms and ours? Because the cool thing about physics is we can convert a one-directional waveform into something that's unpolarized and something that distributes equally. And that's what being out in nature does. And that's what our grounding bags do. So do you know Eileen McCusick and her work?
I do not.
So she has a sound tuning fork, a healing system.
I do. Yes, yeah. I do.
And she clears the biofield of any stuck generational trauma. And what we're seeing is that people have stuck EMF in their biofield. And when you could clear that, your body starts to heal. So we have a tapping protocol that goes along with our grounding bags that you do. But what I love about Eileen, Julie, is that she talks about the body being a body battery. And we get nutrients from nature in 5 different ways. We get it from the Earth's resonance and that negative ionic charge, and we pull those electrons to support our electron transport chain. That's what really gives us energy, is being grounded and the earthing and grounding outside. She also says we get it from the sun, and we get, because we're essentially a holograph of light. Our bodies are light beings, and they're energy and water and light, and they basically are a pressurized system, a pressure system. And so when we combine all these facets, that light really starts to allow us to thrive and expand. Because if you see someone at the later stage of their life, they're really pale, their cells' health is dying. But when you see someone younger, they're glowing. You see their energy, and that's how these cells communicate. So that light is so important. We also get it from the food, and Zach Bush will say you also get it from the air and breathing in different amazing biomes, environmental microbiomes. And so breathe in the air. And then the last would be, we get it from the water and the conductivity of the water. So having good quality structured spring water would be the great. So if we're missing the ground, the sun, the air, the food and water, and that conductivity from the water, our body batteries, which are essentially capacitors, there's a gap in that. And then we're a gateway for disease to occur.
Which makes perfect sense. And anyone listening on some level understands like mitochondrial health and the impact that has on our overall wellness. And I can sadly like imagine somebody who's not getting any of those things, right? Not getting, not putting feet on the earth, so they're not charging. they're inside all day. What they're calling food isn't really food. They're oh my gosh, when I think of the poor people that believed and wore masks for years. I mean, it just all of these things, and then water. Don't even go. That's a whole nother topic. So it sounds so simple and kind of hard to argue, right? It's hard to say, you're just an alarmist. What do you need? I mean, we need the things we were designed to have around us. So I want to know a little bit. So, we've got these EMFs and like all the things that these one unidirectional, we're being bombarded all the time. And I think it's getting worse and worse. I want to briefly touch on some of kind of the newer exposures, if you will, that I find really alarming. And I was excited to hear that you find just as alarming, and you've seen the same data I have. And then I want to dig in a little bit about the rocks and how they work, and how people can use them to support their wellness.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
give us some of the newer. I mean, you mentioned a couple already.
Definitely. So basically, this is a great question because we want to identify the stressors. And
Right.
Electricity, we're all essentially living in these homes. We call them homes, but they're electrical boxes. I mean, that's the fact of it. So electricity is a stressor. And then we have dirty electricity, which is a faster speed of a wavelength. And that's from static in the lines and sparking static in the lines where signals don't meet going in and out of a junction. And you could get that from electricity, from dim switches on a light, from solar on a homes. The batteries of electric cars being charged in your homes, the battery of electric car driving it, all kick off lots of dirty electricity. And then you can also buy meters that meter, the electricity, the dirty electricity, and the signals, which would be earbuds and computers, all smart devices. So those are the different categories. And then there's meters to measure each of those categories. And I think right now, Julie, the bigs out there are smart meters on the homes because they're a two-way router. They're basically like a cell tower on your home. People are really leaning in on this wearable technology. So smartwatches and earbuds, and laptops over their laps. We got to get that stuff out because probably one of the most evil marketing schemes of all time was to put a battery in a router of a laptop so you put over your reproductive organs. That's really challenging.
Or do that and sit in an electric car. Sorry, but
yes,
I want to share with listeners, for people who haven't heard this conversation before. We're talking about obviously exposure, and electric cars are newer, becoming more popular. The batteries are, I'm guessing, getting more and more powerful. I see it in day to day, and I've also seen, studies. What is going on? What's happening? And we'll pick on men just because. Why should men maybe not be driving around an electric car specifically?
Yeah, because it lowers testosterone on women and two, but it lowered 18%.
Yeah. And actually, as a woman who knows better, like, we need healthy testosterone levels as well.
Yeah.
And so I have to imagine, along with, all of the xenoestrogens and toxins and things, but I have had several clients, male clients, that usually, luckily, anybody who chooses to work with me has a pretty good sense of humor, so they can handle it when I'm like, your testosterone is lower than mine and your estrogen is higher, right? And these are men ranging from, I would say, 30 to 50. These are not men in their 70s. Seeing it more and more and more. And I have to think that these exposures are really a big factor here.
They really are. And the electric car fad is really got to go. in a big way. And I'm seeing it more in Denver, when I fly out to Colorado to meet with, and um, it's super challenging out there as well. You drive in a Uber and they're electric. Guys, we're in the mountains. Like, these batteries freeze. They don't get more fuel efficient. You're using more electricity that everyone's touting. You got to use less electricity and if you want to use a vehicle. It's absolutely, there's no rhyme or reason
Thank
on
you
this
for
whole
adding
concept. Just
that logic. It's like not like electric cars are just running on magic. They're still taking, they still need to get charged.
Yeah, and the manufacturing is really dirty. So they're using coal, cadmium, nickel, all these precious minerals, copper. There's a lot of copper in them. And so if someone, this whole the thief stealing copper from buildings, they all they need to do is go to smelters. And so the copper is there's so much copper in there. The mining, the process in these batteries and panels are just extensive and dirty, and they're using what we call fossil fuels, but fossil fuels are really bone fossils. Like, that's what it should be called, but we name it wrong. The whole thing is just an unlearned opportunity. So we got to get out of this fad. If half the US is living in multifamily opportunity or residence per se, there's never going to be structure or grid for it. And with this AI usage of the extra voltage and electricity, the grid will never be able to sustain everyone driving an electric vehicle and AI and all this computer usage. It just can't. There's just too much usage with it, and the amount of usage, it throws off the grid. Electric cars throw off the grid of your home. So the second you charge your car at your home, if you healthy wired home, it's not healthy anymore. The second you get in the car, it's like a slow cook process. And then it's a fire hazard, and then they could shut it down at any time. And then if the electricity goes off, you can get stuck in your car. And if you don't know the override, how to get out, you're stuck in your car. And so lots of fire hazards with it at home, and then also driving it. It's really heavy. It doesn't get more fuel efficient. It tears up the roads. I mean, there's like literally countless reasons not to drive an electric car. But the main thing is it has all three of the major stressors of electricity at the highest level. And sitting on that battery with that dirty electricity, it takes the cake. That's the strongest and the worst for us, because all combustion cars have lots of Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, cellular, GPS tracking, broadband spectrum. Like, they have, like a cell phone, like a laptop, like your cars, they have those 5 different bandwidths in it. So plus radio. I mean, we're getting a lot in just a regular combustion car, but it's that battery that's sitting on a massive battery that is so devastating for us.
I thank you for so eloquently joining this conversation, because again, it's just like the food industry. Honestly, the marketing is so good, right? The shaming, I have horses. I have big horses and a big horse trailer. I drive a truck. It runs on gasoline. And I'm okay with that. Like, it's
That's how it should be. Yeah.
When I
It
can
is
walk,
okay.
I walk. When
Yeah.
I need to drive. I do have a smaller car for when I'm running around town, but it also runs on gasoline.
Right.
So thank you because I really do feel like it's same as, and I wasn't expecting to keep bringing up, like, there's just things that keep reminding me of the pandemic that, we all kind of went through a few years ago in one way or another, of this the shaming, right? Like, I was shamed and ridiculed for not wearing a mask all day, every day, because I understand how health works, and that's not a healthy approach. Also, they
Right.
didn't work. So anyway, but I feel like with this whole, Same with solar on your house, right? I get probably once a week either a piece of mail, an email, something about, hey, let us put solar panels on your house and you'll make money. No, thank you.
Yeah.
So it is, it's such an important conversation. But here we are, we're in this world. I'm talking to you on my laptop, which is not on my lap, but far away. Let's talk a little bit about the grounding bags and EMF rocks, because again, it's not about go live in a Faraday cage, go live in a cave. It's about how do we, I think of it as a reset, creating that resilience, to counterbalance some of these really negative inputs.
Thanks. Yeah. Well, before I get into our EMF rocks, the grounding bags, and I definitely, of course, want to share them with you. But I just want to second what you said about, the thing that everyone experienced the last several years, and where we were being shamed and really manipulated in a lot of ways. And there's a book called The Invisible Rainbow by Arthur Furstenberg, and categorizes the history of electricity and life. And that book is fantastic for anyone who wants to learn about the history of electricity in life. Like, how are we one with electricity? And whether it's cosmic electricity or non-native. And what this book talks about, it's absolutely riveting. It correlates every major electrification in our atmosphere and directly correlates it with dis-ease. And
starting
one
with
of the craziest things,
right? Starting with the flu, like back when the flu. Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, so it's amazing. So listen to this, Julie. 89, that was the first year we introduced electricity into the homes. Well, prior to that, they called the flu. They called it influenza, and they called it the flu because it would fly in and fly out with cosmic shifts, with solar flares, with atmospheric pressure shifts, when it was under the influence of the stars. That's where it got the word influenza. And that you saw like sporadic periods of dis-ease, because when there's a cosmic shift, a full moon, like our REM patterns are disrupted, our bodies do the best they can to adapt. Now, not until we put electricity in the homes was the flu here to stay, and it became seasonal. But then every major electrification in 1918, we rolled out radio waves for the first time. That was correlated with the Spanish flu. And then World War II, radar, Hong Kong flu, satellites in the Van Allen belt, this atmospheric belt, like where we're really close to the satellites now in it. So disruptive. And then obviously the last, several years, what did we roll out? 5G. This is the first time we rolled it out. In Wuhan, everyone got sick. In Seattle, everyone got sick. I mean, the first places, but remember these waves, we can make a phone call instantly to across the world.
Right.
And so there's no scratching your head that these broadcasts of these frequencies, that's the poison, that's the contagion. It's an environmental toxin that our bodies do. And Dr. Tom Cowan says it best. He has an amazing website, drtomcowan.com. But he had a viral video, and he said, if you're studying dolphins, are you going to say to that dolphin, give that dolphin a virus if they get sick? No, you're going to say, who polluted their water? Right. And so all the medical doctors, they had this aha moment, and they're like, okay, it's environment. It's not a virus is the bad guy. Right. A virus has never been isolated or purified and proven to be the cause of disease. This has been a theme from pharma for over 140 years.
Back
with
to
Louis
marketing.
Pasteur and Béchamp. And I mean, it goes on, but net of it is this EMFs, 5G, the wireless signals, electricity, They are the number one environmental stressor. It is a necessity, everybody, to get outside into nature and get grounded as much as you can. And then once you're inside, it's a necessity to use our grounding bags to create that coherence in your home.
Amen. Love it. So tell us about how does this work? I understand grounding. I do it all the time. I'm pointing this way because I'm out barefoot right there all the time. How tell me kind of a little bit about the rocks themselves, but also how do we use them? Because I don't live I'm not living outside. I come inside. I sleep inside at night for the most part. So
we're all essentially electricians carrying routers and batteries in our hands and pockets and purses all day long.
Right.
So, and then we go inside to have more technology. So the grounding bags, what I did is I looked to nature to solve this challenge because everyone looks to nature to get grounded, right?
Sure.
So did I. And that's what our technology is. It's nature's resonance in a bag. So if nature has this incredible healing capacity, I found the proper crystals that have a strongest resonance that you can bring into your home to create that coherence. These crystals are colloidal crystals. We hand mine them in the Western US. They have a moisture content in them. They have moisture with magnetic properties. Now, shungite, amethyst, black tourmaline, all the other known crystals, they only have magnetic properties. They don't have a moisture content. So our crystals have a life expectancy of about 2 to 3 years. When they turn really white and they're normally pink, or they dry out, it's time to replace them. So if you get them in extreme heat, or if you open the bags, you're probably not going to get the shelf life of that full shelf life. So we deploy them like this. You use them as is, keep them sealed. And Julie, put this on your bed, at the head of the bed between you and your partner, and you will sleep up to 60% deeper.
Amazing. Or could you instead put one on either side, like
I
don't like anything
can.
between myself and my partner.
Yeah, well, it would be at the head
we
of
have
the bed.
dogs too, but you can put it like between the mattress and the wall, right? Just
mattress and the headboard.
Yep.
That would be a good spot. So you can have where you won't touch it. It's not going to bother you. And what we found is they test really well. The more of the mass of mind that you can accumulate together. So essentially, the more grounding bags you have together, the stronger the resonance is versus doing like corner to corner of your room.
Gotcha.
So if you put 5 grounding bags together on the floor of your home, centrally located, that'll clear 2,000 square feet. And then at least 1 grounding bag on your bed, on your desk, and under your car, a combustion car, at least 1 per seat. You'll clear up, you'll clear each of those as well. And the other part I want to mention is because you're dealing with more chronic challenge patients and clients, is that the grounding bags they're one of the coolest things about it is because it's not a manufactured device. It's not like eating GMO food. It's not a manufactured frequency, trying to keep up with the other manufactured frequencies. Right. That would be like eating fake food and having fake food in your environment. So no one does it better than nature. But what she does is you can use these as a self-healing protocol to flush any toxicity out of your energy field, number 1. And number 2, recharge your body battery. And what I've found, the weak links for athletes are their ankles and their wrists. Typically, people sprain those joints. Well, the weak links for the body, Julie, are your eyes, your teeth, your thymus, which is your upper chest, and then your intestines below your belly button. So you can 10x your energy by tapping on the bag and breathing, And then tap on the bag and cover your eyes and do it for about 20 seconds. And then go to your teeth, direct the properties of the crystals to your teeth. And then thymus, this is the electrical system for your body. So this is where everything kind of comes together. And then do it for your intestines if you're not digesting well. And you can flush, you'll have maybe a sign of a subtle detox during, breathe through it. But you guys, you'll be able to increase your energy right away, because it's really, really difficult to heal, especially from a chronic challenge, when your body loses its polarity and it's decharged. So you gotta get out into nature, or even more specifically, target those areas that are decharged and recharge them with our grounding bags.
I love that. And one of the things that makes that so powerful is you don't need somebody to do it for you. You just have to learn how to do it, and it becomes a self-healing tool. And the body is designed to heal. We don't need, nobody has a medication deficiency. Like, that's not the problem. And I'm not anti-medication. There's a time and a place. But this depletion is why our bodies aren't rebounding and able to fight these things and recover. Whether you're an athlete wanting to recover to up level, or you're somebody who has been slowly declining because of chronic inflammation for years, it doesn't matter. You have what you need. We just need to, this is part of that. I'm always talking about removing the blocks to healing. And I have to say it, although I know we don't have a ton of time left, but I was going to make a joke. I'm a Jersey girl. I can't help it. But like, are you saying we can direct energy? What? Yeah. Yes. A whole nother conversation.
Yeah.
But the exercise you just showed us, and for people listening on audio, it's not complicated. And you don't need, training and education to learn how to use this tool, which is huge. So you talked about, how we can use the grounding bags and the rocks in our homes and in our cars. I know you make a little one you can carry around. If you're working in like an office building, is there even any point like having something there for, you know what I mean? Like, is there a level at which it's like, just fix yourself later. Don't bother.
Right. So the challenge is we're so depleted from so many ways that it's kind of a necessity to have some support with you around, because we're not Shaolin monks. We're not grounding and breathing all day long and having our vitality so strong anymore. We're just unfortunately not. And when there's blockages in your system and your system gets stuck in this perpetual cycle of chronic state because it's not flowing properly, or you have fascial adhesions, or whatever the case may be, it's tough to heal. So I feel it's really a necessity to carry the mini grounding bags in your pocket, purse, or backpack for on-the-go protection. And then if you're in an office, bring some grounding bags for your office and keep them at the office. And that'll create a coherence in your environment. And I mean, of course, there's going to be times where you don't have them, but when you have them on you, it's doing is replenishing your body and making your life force and your vitality stronger. So if you take it away, you're going to be stronger to fend against it. And I want to really make this point as well, is there's nothing to fear with this technology. I got into a rut, or well, not a rut, but I had an experience where I metered, and I've been metering homes and offices for about over a dozen years now. And I went to one and I got an instant headache, and the signals, the towers were so strong. And I'm like, oh man, we're doomed. Like, this is absolutely crazy. And then we were young, all healthy guys in our 40s at the time, like super strong. And all of us got a headache within 10 seconds. It was crazy. I'm like, wow, these are weapons, directed energy weapons. And Literally, they are. And so I'm like, what do I do? So I had to get an emotional clearing.
Yes.
But there's this cool thing called physics. And physics, you can convert these one directional waveforms into things that are unpolarized. And that's what nature does. That's what our grounding bags do. So once I really grasped that concept and knew it, that we can do it just with our intent and our own polarity once we develop that wizardry. But when you're healing, it's a little challenging. So use these products. These are the support systems that will help facilitate you to get into those higher strength levels.
Love it. And share with listeners, you mentioned kind of lifespan of the bags of the rocks. But you can recharge them as well.
Yes.
I'm guessing not if they've dried out and gone too far. But like, the little ones you carry around. What is your high-tech way to recharge the rocks?
Yes. Well, technically, if they're in solid form, they're still ground. So you don't have to recharge them. But what we've seen, Dr. Rodney White did a sleep test, and he did it over 3 months, but every month he would reground the bags by putting them outside on the lawn in the shade for 20 minutes. And the second his sleep would drop 5%, he would recharge it, and then it would go back up, which is
amazing.
really interesting. So the tests are showing that you'll get more out of them when you reground them every couple weeks.
Yeah, which makes perfect sense, right? You think of it as they have these amazing properties still, but they've been separated from the earth. So it just, I love the whole thing. And I think if people could start to learn a little bit about the amazing power of nature, we would be less impressed with the next gadget and more impressed with how do we get back closer to nature.
And we won't live in fear. Like, quite honestly, like there's nothing anyone could say, oh, this flu, this pandemic, No, it's not that. It's what is the pollution? And we can get it from chemtrails, which, these are one of the blockages. The barium is destructuring our fascia and dehydrating us. And Gary Lineham at Human Garage will say that. And that's an incredible self-healing fascia maneuver system. And it's free online, humangarage.net. You guys check that out. But you get it from, obviously Zach Bush will say, hey, we have 40 years of glyphosate poisoning.
Sure.
And then I'll say we have 140 years of electricity. And there's so many toxic, elements, but it's the environmental toxins. And we can even create toxicity just with stress in our body. So
sure.
Those are the contagions, if you will. There's no pathogenic contagion. It's environmental toxins.
I love that. And the good news, listeners have heard me say this over and over. We can't get to perfect anyway, but you don't have to, right? So yeah, if we're using the rocks and there's other exposures, every aspect of what I would call contamination that we're being exposed to, better is better. And we can find that level of, whether it's for the athlete, of like ultimate power and recovery, or if it's for my listeners, it's that healing, right? You're just getting things down to a level that creates the resilience. And so the EMF rocks are a huge tool. Plus you gave like literally a dozen other resources. Listeners are going to have to go. This is one you guys need to get the transcripts and the links for sure, because so many resources here to support the healing journey. Justin, I really genuinely am grateful for your work and your dedication to get the word out in a way that is not promoting fear. Because it is easy for us, as we start to understand what's genuinely impacting our health, to go through that phase of fear, but then move out of it and take action. It would be ideal for sure. So we're at the point of the conversation where, I do this thing in my head where I try to, like, in my mind, guess what you're going to say, but it really can be anything. What is one step that listeners can take starting today to improve their health?
Okay, this one's easy because it's free. Get outside and get grounded by nature, because that is your nature. It's free. All you need to do is get outside, take in the sun, touch a tree if you don't want to go barefoot, but ideally go barefoot, touch their surface, maybe even just have a picnic, lay down a blanket, and
or don't.
Feet in. What's that?
I said, or don't, or just sit on the ground.
Sit on a rock, touch a tree, literally sit on the lawn, put your feet into a body of water, get into a body of water. I'm the living, breathing ambassador of getting grounded by nature. I was in the ocean literally probably about an hour and a half yesterday. And then I was barefoot all day playing volleyball at the beach. Literally, so in the sun, there are the ways. Now I live at the beach, so that's great because I can access it. But if you're in a lake, if you're in a river, get in the river. These are the resonances that our bodies really love the survival instincts from it. And it's all free. Just get outside in the nature. It's free.
Amazing gold you gave us today, or rocks. Justin, thank you so much for your time and wisdom. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me on.
For everyone listening, remember you can get those transcripts and show notes by visiting inspiredliving.show. I hope you had a great time and enjoyed this episode as much as I did. Listen to it twice. Have a great day.
Thank you for listening to Julie Michelson's Inspired Living with Autoimmunity. Did you enjoy this episode? Please like, share, and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. If you'd like to get a transcript of this and every other episode, just head on over to inspiredliving.show or click on the link in this episode's description. There, you can also find everything we discussed in this episode, including links and information about our guest. You can even send in your questions to be answered by Julie in a future episode. That's inspiredliving.show. Until next time, this is Julie Michelson's Inspired Living with Autoimmunity podcast, helping you take your power back.